Maryland's locker room needs to figure it out for 2025.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime Korean account and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Maryland football's locker room better not be a repeat of how it was last year. So a locker room is extremely important for sports. It's one of the most important things. A lot of things go on in a locker room that a lot of people that didn't play sports don't realize. And as a current college athlete, I can tell you there's a lot of things that go down in a locker room. A lot of people talk in a locker room. A lot of people say different things. A lot of people will have different conversations. Arguments can break out. Coaches come to speak. Captains will speak. There's a lot of different things that go on in a locker room, in a college locker room. And having been in one, I feel like I understand it pretty well. And so earlier this summer, I guess really not that long ago, a week or so ago, at Big Ten Media Day, Mike Locksley admitted that last year he had lost the locker room. And yeah, there was some context added on to that. He said it wasn't because he wasn't doing a good job coaching, and it wasn't because the players were fighting, or what did he say? Because the players weren't good players. It was because everyone knew that they should be better than the team they were last year. And I think we were all on the same page. We all agreed that Maryland's football team last year should have been much better. I think we can all say that. I think we can all agree on that the Maryland team should have been better last year. It was pretty good on paper. We weren't asking to be a top team in the Big Ten. We weren't asking to be Ohio State to make the national championship. But we were asking to have a competent team that could actually do something, put up some consistent numbers, do some things consistently, and Maryland couldn't do it. And a lot of us try to analyze it, people like me, and try and talk about it and be like, what's the problem here? You got the most people drafted you've ever had on a Maryland team, and all of a sudden we can't beat Northwestern, or we're getting blown out by multiple teams that we shouldn't beat. The only win you can feel good about last year came against USC at home. And that was a pretty down year for a Lincoln Riley-led USC. I'm not going to negate that win. It was a good win. But at the same time, you wondered, what was the deal last year? Why weren't things clicking? It felt like we had a pretty good team. Obviously, we have holes, but every college team has holes. I don't think Northwestern was much better than us. I didn't think Rutgers was much better. Like, there were teams that we played last year that I'm like, I don't think this team is much better than us, but we're getting killed. It feels like we're getting out coached. We were like, is it a player thing? Is it a Mike Locksley thing? Are we just not that talented? But when you look back at last year's team, we were pretty good. I thought we had some holes on defensive side of the ball. I thought our secondary was I thought our linebacking room, honestly, was pretty good. I thought our defensive line was okay. I thought our offensive line was but I thought we had a really good receiver room. I thought our safeties were pretty solid, even though I said the secondary is bad. I mean, mainly the corners. I thought our quarterback, Billy Edwards, was all right. I thought we had good tight ends. Like, I thought we had a solid team. We had two draft picks on the defensive line. I know it wasn't the best unit ever, but it felt like we had some players on the team when you looked at it, and it just didn't come into a team, and it didn't come into how we expected it. And a lot of us said, okay, what is up with this thing? And the more and more I've read, the more and more I've listened to these press conferences. First, it was the Michael Locksley when a lot of you guys were like, Locksley wasn't saying there's locker room problems. You got to read the context. You got to read in between them. And I'm starting to realize the problem from last year was the locker room. It was the locker room. Things clearly weren't going well in the locker room. And if you listen to this quote by Daniel Wingate, who just got put on the Buckus Award watch list, which is basically the best linebacker in the country. He's supposed to be one of our best players next season. I think he's going to end up being a really good player. I think he could potentially be an All Big Ten. I think he's preseason All Big Ten on some of the different lists. It feels like there's millions of lists that come out for that thing. And so Daniel Wingate has a lot to say. He's a leader in on that Maryland team. He's not going to just say anything. He's not like a young guy who doesn't know what he's saying. And if a guy tells you there's locker room problems, which I'll get to the quote in a second, like Daniel Wingate said, you have to listen to that. And so it was a really interesting quote. So Daniel Wingate discussed, he said there was a weird feeling that took place in the locker room as the season progressed and the losses piled up. Once the losing started going on, there was a lot of bickering going back and forth. A lot of this guy shouldn't be playing, this guy shouldn't be doing that. Wingate said at the media session day, it was a mess, a weird tension. So at first you guys were like, oh, Loxley is just, you got to read the context, blah, blah, blah. Like there wasn't really problems. Loxley didn't lose the locker room. That is a big quote. And I don't know if people are talking about that enough because it's like, yeah, we have a lot of different players, but there are plenty of players that are still on this team from last year. And if how Daniel Wingate described, there was bickering going on, people were upset, there were different things like that going on. That tells me myself that Maryland's locker room was the problem last year. It was the problem last year. I think that I, for a while, tried to figure out what were the roots of it. I did think part of it was Mike Loxley, but I didn't think that was it. It was a locker room. People didn't believe in what they were doing. They didn't believe in it. And that starts at the top with Mike Loxley. When you have players questioning the coach, it makes it so much harder to win. So much harder to win because they feel as if the coach isn't putting them in the best position to win. They feel as if things aren't going the right way. They feel as this guy shouldn't be playing out there and why is he out there? And everybody's kind of having a bickering and it doesn't go down well. It doesn't go down well. And you saw it on the product of the field last year when we were terrible. They were terrible because nobody believed in it. It's basically what Daniel Wingate. I'm sure there was guys that were good leaders that try to keep it on track, but I think it's pretty obvious that nobody really believed in what Maryland football was doing. That's why we lose 29-13 to Iowa. That's why we lose by 40 points to Penn State. That's why we lose by 14 points to Rutgers. That's why we lose by 25 to Minnesota. That's why we lost by 27 to Northwestern. To remind you guys, we were favored in most of these games. We were favored in a lot of them. So it wasn't like, oh, this Maryland team's awful. Oh, this Maryland team's bad. Like Vegas saw us as a favorite. Like I'm pretty sure I know we were a favorite at home against Northwestern. I know we were a favorite against Rutgers at home. It's not like one of those things where it's like, oh, Maryland just wasn't that good. We had locker room problems that were the root of it. And if I'm telling you, if people are questioning everything, that's a problem. That's a huge problem. And obviously some of you guys might be saying to me right now, that was in 2024. Why are we worried about that? Why are we worried about last year? And my thing is what I really see is that those same problems can happen again. And that's why Mike Loxley's been saying, leave the NIL stuff out the door, leave all the extra stuff out the locker room, because he recognizes that it's a problem. It's a problem. And I think it can't happen this year because we aren't talented enough. We aren't good enough. And I'll say that here first. To be a team that can actually compete and get to a bowl game and win 6, 7 games, hopefully 8 like we've done in the past, we are not talented enough to do that with locker room problems. Some teams can get away with it. Some teams can get away with it. Like if some guys on Bama are talking and they're like, this isn't going right, blah, 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 this guy shouldn't be playing, that guy's making that much money, they might get away with it because they're just out of this world talented and they're best players and they're going to the NFL. Or a team like Ohio State, who we've played over the last couple of years, they might be able to get away with it. A team like Maryland, when you don't have that talent level that a lot of these teams have, or not a lot, but some teams have, I would actually take that back. Not a lot of teams have it, that some of these teams have, You can't go in just kind of shortcutting things. You can't go have a locker room that isn't 100% in, because then kids aren't committed. People aren't going to pay attention to the details. You're going to lose people's attention. People aren't going to play as hard for that team because they're just not going to believe in it. And if you don't believe in it, if you're not trusting the coach, you don't trust the process, if you don't trust the people that are playing, and if you're not playing, whatever the case is, the process just is not going to go the right way, because you need everyone. You think during the week that didn't affect some of the people who were on scout team, who weren't playing, who felt like they should be playing, who needed to give a good look and maybe gave a lazier look, or guys that were playing that didn't believe in Mike Locksley and what he was doing and were bickering about it? You think they played as hard as they could have? No. And I bet it contributed to losing. Like Wingate said, it was weird feeling. It was a mess. And so that's got to get cleaned up. And that's part of the reason why I'm like, Maryland needs a permanent captains. I don't like this new captain every week. I don't like that. You need to have guys that are set leaders so everybody knows when they say something, everybody listens. Like, you need people with that kind of aura that you can have. And I can speak to that. Like, you need captains that actually people will listen to. Because if you have a captain that's a joke, a captain that people won't listen to, a leader that people won't listen to, it just won't go well. And so it can't just be Mike Locksley. It can't just be the rest of that coaching staff. It's got to be everyone below. And the disappointing thing hearing about some of these quotes is that it feels like Locksley has worked hard to improve the culture and had gotten it into a good spot. But as soon as a controversy hit last year when things weren't going exactly right, that's when things started to go downhill. So definitely something we're going to have to fix. Definitely something that has to get cleaned up. Or else we won't win games next year. We won't win a Big Ten game next year. We might not win a Big Ten game if we don't get some of that stuff figured out. If we don't fix some of those things up, we might not win. Like, I'm serious. We might not win a Big Ten game next year. So that's kind of how I see it right now. I think we need to improve in different areas in the locker room. And I think it's a big thing. I don't think that it's something that we shouldn't just not talk about. I'm going to talk about the biggest question marks at training camp and the players that I think everyone should be looking out for. I'll talk about that next. If you're trying to stay top on your routine, whether that's a workout, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration is where it all starts, and that's where Drip Drop comes in. When I'm on top of my hydration, I notice everything works better. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin. But getting enough fluids every day isn't always easy. That's why I've been loving Drip Drop. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium, electrolytes, and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. I use Drip Drop as an athlete to stay hydrated. It really helps, and I really recommend you guys getting on Drip Drop. They have so many different flavors that caters towards everyone, and there's so many different things to try with Drip Drop. So right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com and use promo code Locked On College. That's dripdrop.com with promo code Locked On College for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. So I want to talk about some of the biggest training camp players that I think we all should be looking out for. And I don't want to talk about like your Malik Washingtons of the world. We all know Malik Washington's a guy that everyone's interested in, but I want to talk about some of the other places. So here's kind of how I see it right now. Some of the players that I'm going to be looking at. I think the number one guy I'm looking out for, because I don't really understand this player. I don't know his impact yet. But I think it's Zier Smith, the freshman. I don't know about you guys, but I just don't know much about Zier Smith at this point. 4-star rated prospect, was committed to Bama. Weren't sure if he's playing defense or offense. It looks like he's kind of transitioned to the offense side of things. I think that's part of why he picked Maryland. I think he wanted to play offense. I mean, we obviously gave him that opportunity to play offense, so I think that's a big reason why he's on the offensive side of things. So we have Zier Smith, the athlete. But my thing is like, I really want to watch a practice because you're going to get an idea of first team, second team, third team, whatever the case is. My question is Zier Smith a contributor this year? I hope there's some reports that come out about Zier Smith. How does he look? Because his explosiveness, his versatility, a lot of people think he can contribute to the team this year. I just haven't seen it. I just don't know. Obviously, he's a freshman. Like, where would I have seen it? But I do think he's a really interesting player that could potentially contribute to Maryland's football team. But I just don't know because I haven't seen it. And I do really want to be able to kind of see it and see what's up with Zier Smith. But I think he's one of the bigger storylines of training camp because it's just a guy we haven't really seen. We haven't really seen much of. So I'm really curious about him. Another guy I think everyone's going to be looking out for is Jaleel Farouk. I didn't watch a lot of Oklahoma football, but I know he put up the numbers at Oklahoma football. I think he could be our number one, number two receiver. I said yesterday, I think Octavian Smith is going to be a star. I think Octavian Smith's a really talented player. So I'm also want to know how good is Jaleel Farouk coming back from the injury. Is he a leader? Is he our top receiver? Clearly, is he still coming back? Where is he with progressing things? Because I think in terms of our team, how it's going to shape up, I think a lot of it's going to come down to how good actually Jaleel Farouk is. So I think that's going to be interesting. Jaleel Farouk, how good is he? What kind of player is he? What kind of level is Jaleel Farouk on? I think that's something that I'm really looking forward to. Someone that I'm really going to be paying attention to. Another player is Neo Avery. Neo Avery, for the longest time, I feel like I've said he's had a lot of potential to be a really good player. He definitely had some injury problems. He's had different things, but I've always thought he could be a pretty good player. And as a redshirt freshman, his freshman year, he didn't see game action. He redshirted to get healthy. I thought he was going to have the chance to do something. Didn't play a ton, didn't do much. But as a former four-star recruit and with his 6'6", 250 frame, you just wonder how long it's going to take before he looks like the type of guy we expect him to. So that's someone that I'm really looking out for, someone that I expect to be really good. And then the next guy I'm really excited for is Zier Smith, the freshman, 6'6". They have him at 225 right now, coming off the edge. Obviously, Zier Smith comes in as a high-level four-star recruit. We haven't seen Zier Smith. He wasn't here in spring ball. So I'm kind of curious, how has this kid adjusted? How does Zier Smith look? I think Maryland's pass rush clearly has needed a lot of work over the years, and I want to see Zier Smith. How is he playing? How does he look? What's the deal with him? What's the storylines with Zier Smith? Is he a guy that can play? Because Sidney Stewart is a guy that reportedly by Jeff Furman, this was a while ago, I want to say like a month or a couple weeks ago, he said that he projected Stewart to be one of our better guys, even though he wasn't recruited as much. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. What about Zier Smith? So I'm like, who between them is kind of, I don't know if it has to be one or the other, but between those guys, who's somebody that is going to look good. And then another freshman, Jaden Ships. I forget what interview it was, but somebody mentioned that Jaden Ships looks really good and that he could jump on the scene. It might have been Jalen Husky, but I don't know. I'd have to check that. But somebody was talking about Jaden Ships, a freshman quarterback, went to the same school as Malik Washington, that he actually looked really good and that he's playing at a high level. So I'm kind of interested to see those guys. Those are just a couple of them. Those are some young players. I do think we're deep in terms of youth. I don't know if we have it seems interesting. I don't know if I think we're less. I do think we're a deeper team. I don't think there's much variance between the roster, but I don't think we have the starts that we've had. So there are a lot of young guys that I'm kind of looking at. I'm like, how are they going to look? Let's talk about some of the QB chatter next. What I kind of read between the lines, what I kind of see between what people are saying about the QBs. We'll talk about that next. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with killer last-minute deals. Tired of the endless scrolling? Try finding the best deal with Gametime Zone Deals Picks. The best in your section for you. There's so many different tickets. I use a Gametime app to go to a Red Sox game. It worked perfectly. It was a great offer on price. So make sure you guys head over to Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So I want to talk about some of the quarterback comments that came out. There's some interesting kind of QB topics that people were saying. And so Dorian Fleming had an interesting comment about Malik Washington. He says he is as advertised. He is as advertised. Malik Washington, I bet, has been looking good. I'm just getting that sense. People have talked about how he has a confidence about him. Dorian Fleming, who potentially could be our best player. He's the best rated player in EA college football. I don't know how much you guys play that game. I've been playing it with my friends. I've been playing Road to Glory. Haven't used Maryland yet, and maybe I probably should. But Dorian Fleming's our highest rated player at like an 88 or 87, somewhere in that realm. It's either one of those two. And so if he's saying Dorian Fleming, if he's saying Malik Washington looks good, we should listen to him. We should listen to that. If he's telling us Malik Washington has looked really good and that he's lived up to that. He's lived up to that 4-star recruit. He is as advertised. That's the wording he used. We should listen. And that tells me that Malik Washington is looking good and is probably the best quarterback. I'm not saying Dorian Fleming's trying to be like, yeah, he should start, but you just continue to get that sense that it's going to be Malik Washington day in and day out. I kind of feel like that it's going to be Malik Washington. And then our OC Pep Hamilton talked about how he's going to take off pressure on the quarterbacks. He says that just means you got to do everything you can to keep them out of obvious passing situations. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to try and be creative in how we manage and really mitigate our early downs so we don't end with a 3rd and long situation where it becomes an uphill battle for any quarterback to be successful. I think that's great. It's great to hear that from Pep because I think it just is too difficult for a team like us. Our team needs to be excellent on first down, whether it's running, whether it's a short passing game, whatever the case is, we need to be good because 3rd and long ain't going to happen. With a young quarterback, with receivers that we just aren't 100% sure about. I feel good about the receiver room, but an offensive line, how long are those guys blocking for us? I don't know. So I just think that when you look at this team overall, I think it's really good to look at it and be like, okay, we need to stay out of 3rd and long. And obviously any offensive coordinator is going to tell you that, but he's saying that it's going to be an emphasis that they're going to get creative with it. It's not just going to be like, we need to run the ball on first down to get it to 2nd and 6 instead of 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 10 after an incomplete pass. He's saying they're going to be creative with it. And that's what you have to do with a team like Maryland. You can't just line up and be like, we're going to be better than you or stronger or faster. Like, that's not who we are. We need some creativity to take it to the next level. So interesting comments. Malik Washington, earlier, Daniel Wingate about the locker room. We're starting to get a sense of things. There are some interesting quotes that are coming out of Maryland's side of things. So we'll see exactly what happens as camp continues to go on. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We're every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.